Welcome back to the Black Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Jeter, the Public Information Officer here at MDEAT. And we're on a mission here to empower, educate, and elevate Miami's Black community. Today, we have a great topic in store for you. And it's timely, it's powerful, and we're just going to get right into it. Can you be young, Black, and thrive in Miami? So, of course, I have my awesome co-workers back in the studio with us, and we're really going to dive into this topic. So, Miami is a very vibrant city. Mm-hmm. It's a great place, full of opportunities, but do we have equal access to those opportunities being young and Black here in Miami? So let's get into it. Before we get started, I would love for my co-workers to go ahead and introduce themselves.
How you doing? I'm the construction development specialist here at the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust. Go by the name of Marquise Best.
Hello, I am the outreach and training specialist too here at MDEAT, and I am Steve Gilbert Jr.
Hello, I'm the research analyst here at MDEAT. My name is Thomas Mingo.
So it's no secret that while we love being in Miami, y'all are from here, correct? Mm-hmm. That there's challenges that exist when it comes to thinking about how can I continue to build this life that I want for myself. Mm-hmm. Miami is also known for high living costs. The cost of living continues to go up.
Very high.
And let's talk about that impact on young Black communities here in Miami trying to establish themselves. Let's just dig into what those challenges look like, and then maybe some strategies around how we can build beyond those obstacles.
One strategy I can go for, because I can attest for this, if you have parents that's living and don't mind you staying with them, stay with them. Save your money, because it's hard to try to save money to buy a house and also pay for the rent of your apartment, where rent is going about like $3,000,
right?
$2,000 in a sense, and then you're trying to save up $30,000 to get 10% for a down payment on a home, and it could happen, but you'll be walking on a tightrope trying to pay your rent and also save. So I say one good thing is to do, if you have parents that, I know as you get older, you want to be on your own, and it's more of an ego thing. Like, I don't want to stay with my parents, especially if you came from college or whatever, where you had your own spot.
And you trying to date.
Right. And you trying to date, and then your parents may have rules and regulations, but you're grown now. You've already tasted the living on your own, and we as people don't want to go back with your parents if you're 27, 28.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
It's kind of like you're going backward. But at the same time, sometimes you got to cut your finger to save your hand. And that's what some people don't understand. So if you have family members that's welcoming you on with open arms, go home. Save your money, because it's very, very high to try to pay rent and also buy a house. I don't think it can happen. That's just me.
Yeah. and that's not as what people think is that's foreign, and a lot of people are not doing it. I think it's 1/3 of the population between 18 and I think 35 are living at home with their parents, and that's nationwide. It has nothing to do with just Miami or Florida, and so it is a thing that's going on right now. It's cost of living is high. The access to certain things are inaccessible in some areas. So it's becoming a trend where kids are staying at home.
So you all born here, raised here, now you're adults here, growing your own families. Has Miami always been like this, or was there a turn where the cost of living started going up and things started to take a change?
Major turn.
Yeah, definitely a turn. Over probably say the last decade. We've really seen an uptick in just the way of life.
It's always been expensive, but now it's just
because you look at it, Miami is a destination that's known worldwide. I don't care where you go in this entire world. Everybody has heard of Miami. Right. So with that in mind, the influx of people that come here that create bidding wars in a sense for houses and things like that, it makes it harder for locals, right? Who grew up here, who know these areas and things like that. So I believe that for us, that's a big part of the journey and hurdle to overcome, right? Just to touch back on moving and staying with parents.
Yeah.
Don't get lost in the fact of you still have to save. Just because you're staying at home with parents don't mean you go out and spend your money freely and you have no responsibilities. And a lot of us, what do? We go out, we like to have a good time, and that's nothing wrong with that. But we gotta have, if we have an end goal in mind.
Yeah, we gotta sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, be a little responsible, have a plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And it kind of goes back to when we were younger. We've had friends and we've had family members that said, hey, when they turned 18,
you're out the house.
You're out the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's not a sustainable way of living, right? Because everybody knows their child. Right,
right,
yeah.
You know if your child can make it at 18, they need a little extra tender love and care.
I mean, most people, you probably can't.
Yeah, right.
Especially in Miami, you could be 25, and you still probably can't.
Still trying to figure it out. So, I want to say, don't be discouraged if you are having to stay at your in-laws' house,
Please
or if you have to stay at home, or you have to stay with your grandparents. Use that as a stepping stool to get ahead.
I mean, other cultures actually do it
all the time.
They strategically live with families together because they have a vision that they're building towards, and it economically, if it makes more sense, it's like, let's make sure we all good, regardless of what it looks like. Like, this my family.
But it's an ego thing with us. I feel like it's a big ego thing. You don't want to be, well, you do, but in our head, like, for instance, I was in that situation. I'm like, I'm 27, still staying with my parents. Like, it just, you just laugh, like.
Well, not at that, but it was just your tone.
But that's how it is. Like, 27, I'm still staying with my parents, man. And it's kind of like, and then you see social media, and then, like, he's like, you want to do that, then you do it. Then now you like, I gotta pay $3,500
for a one bedroom.
Y'all didn't tell me it was like that outside, man. I would have stayed on the porch.
So now now you working.
It's harder to come back. Like, once you leave,
it's hard.
It's like, yo.
And now you living check by check.
You don't even have that room here no more.
That's the office.
We turned it into a library.
But I feel like the turnaround happened in Miami because like you said, people knew Miami, but people only knew certain parts of Miami. South Beach, Aventura, those areas was the rich areas. But now every part of Miami is being looked at. I remember my mother bought a house in Miami Garden. It was like $120,000. Now they want $500,000 for it.
Wow.
Because people are utilizing Miami as its whole, not just the South Beach.
Wow.
So now you're building things in Miami Gardens. You're building things in Liberty City. You build Wynwood is Overtown. It's like people are developing outside of the South Beach area to the point your property tax is going up on this house. So it's kind of like, where could you go at? Everybody's utilizing the whole Miami. Whether back 20 years ago, you knew.
Right, certain pockets.
You knew Aventura.
Right.
That was it. Now you can go to Miami Gardens and you don't know if you're in Aventura. Or you're in Broward. But you're in Miami Gardens. So I think that's going to turn around.
You bring up a really good point. I want to talk a little bit about community support. So what role does community play in supporting and helping young Black residents build successful careers and businesses here in Miami? Can you think about maybe some specific networks and organizations, of course, us,
right?
That is making an impact for us?
It's a lot of community action and resources that goes on at your local parks that I learned about by working here. And it woke me up by saying it'd be a lot of events, but we don't know about it. When I say me, we, the younger generation. And then if you go to these events, you will see what's next upcoming within your community. And they actually be having protests and they actually have arguments of should we do this and should we do this? And you could be the voice to say, yeah, no, because the people are getting older. So I think if you go to some of these park events and when you see the little flyers that be on a Metro Rail and stuff like that, look into it. Like they didn't pay all that money to promote it for no reason.
Right.
Like that's what I think. Like just going to some of your local parks and some of your just all your local events, just go to it. Because I can attest, I was the type of person that just ride by it. Mm-hmm. Now I go in there and I hear what's going on, right. And now my ears are open and my eyes are open. Like, oh, they trying to do this, but I didn't know about it. But my grandfather was there and he was attesting and protesting about not having this happen. And now I'm telling my friends, hey, you know, they trying to tear this down to build a shopping plaza. Yeah. If we get 100 people to sign, it won't happen.
Right.
But they only got 99. You know what I mean? You could have been that last person. So go to these events, any events they have at the parks or wherever, go.
Yeah, and just understanding the community, right? There's community resource centers located all up and down, you know, Miami-Dade County, you know, that range from a multitude of things, you know, childcare to assistance for rental, you know, mortgage,
water bills.
Yeah, you know, light bills and things of that nature. So just understanding the resources that's in the community that's available to us and utilizing it, right? I think oftentimes what gets lost is we don't share certain things when we should, right? So if you're not asking the right questions, you won't get the right answers, right?
That's true.
Whereas sometimes we should be more like, hey, this is something that I knew that I didn't know that I just found out about. Did you hear about this? And it's a word of mouth thing, right? I think that helps us grow and evolve, especially as the younger generation, to take that next step, because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. Right. Thomas, let's talk about entrepreneurship opportunities for young Black entrepreneurs here in Miami. What are some of the biggest hurdles in launching and scaling a business? Let's talk about maybe like access to funding, mentorship, and like other resources. What have you seen?
Some of the biggest hurdles is that, as we all know, Miami is a melting pot. So it's a mixture of different cultures. And so you might have a situation where you walk into a bank or institution trying to get funding, and they might not be, let's say, more willing to give you funding because they might not be aware of the product. It might be a different product that they're not aware of, and it might be a culture difference in a sense. Other hurdles would be just getting, like you said, community involvement, getting people behind your product. Miami is only about 18% Black, and so having that disparity difference when it relates to other ethnic groups, it becomes like, okay, I need more people that look like me to help build my business. I need more Black professionals that look like me to help scale my business, and we might be lacking that when it comes to certain things.
I will say, as a transplant coming here, after a certain amount of time, I realized that really, I think because I am young and Black, to be successful in Miami, you really have to build relationships and play with everybody, because it is a big melting pot. And like you said, we are not the majority in Miami. And so that creates challenges right there, right? Because we're not leading in every industry. We're not decision makers in high places of all of the different areas within Miami. And for me, that was a really big culture shock, because in Philadelphia, we are the majority. We're running the city. We are in those leadership positions. I can call downtown to this person, that person, and they can make, because the network is bigger. And so what are your takes on that?
I feel like that plays a big role in a group to get ahead. And so being that Miami is a melting pot, and I think that's why we're so, as a group, we might be further behind than other cities like Atlanta or Houston or Charlotte, North Carolina, because those cities are predominantly African American, and they've been that way for a while. And they've been building a generational wealth for a while. It's no in Atlanta. It's not foreign to say my granddad, a great granddad, is a millionaire. He's been living in Atlanta since the early 1900s. And he started this particular business. Here, you won't be able to find that. And if you do, it's probably one in a dozen. And because of that culture difference. right? And so when you talk about trying to get ahead, it might be a little more difficult here. That's the reality of it.
Paint the picture of ahead in Miami. What's that? What is that?
Being ahead in Miami, that's a good question. I truly feel like Miami is a city that moves with time, other than like other cities like Atlanta, Houston, things of that nature. That city that stays there is the people that change the city. But Miami is different. I think Miami changes the people rather than the people changes the city. So like for instance, if you had a business in Miami, it was going good, but they build something next to it. If you don't bring that revenue like that building, they're gonna buy you out, or it's gonna get shut down. So I feel like staying ahead of Miami is staying afloat. That's what I feel like. Staying ahead of Miami is staying afloat in Miami. Like,
and to both of y'all points, I think that when we realize it, right, that we're not the majority, and we embrace it, it allows us to create a different space. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? But we can still get on the wheel and have a space for us.
Yeah.
Right. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I understand that too. I get that.
There's a but coming. Come on.
But
there we go.
But having access to certain opportunities might be hindered because of how you look in the language you speak.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that about coming here when it relates to like young Black professionals. I would not advise a young Black professional to move to Miami.
To start a business in Miami.
To start a business or to just move here in general. That's my personal opinion. Now, I'm born and raised I'm from Miami. But would I ask somebody that's from Philly or from Atlanta to say, you know what, move to Miami and you'll have a better life and you'll have a kickstart? I won't give that advice. I'm sorry, I'm being honest.
I have seen over my 4.5 years here, people who come for 2 years who are young and Black from a different part of the country, and they don't last. They leave not because they can't financially make it, it's because they can't find community.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody wants that sense of community, especially when you're not home. It's like, okay, now I need to make new friends. I need to find more support systems. And they end up going to the Houstons, to the Atlantas, because it's easier to find our community.
Yeah.
So with that being said, is it the community or is it the culture?
Both.
Because, well, if you say the community, right, this is why we're here. This is why we have these discussions, right? Because we do need more of a community, right?
Right.
We're not in spaces that we need to be in.
Yeah.
Right.
How do we get there? We have to start somewhere.
No, I agree.
Right? So when we are trying to enter these rooms, I need to bring you along. You need to bring me along.
That's
a sense of community, right? But I think that Blacks in Miami, some of them might lack that. Unlike other areas where it's like, oh no, girl, come with me. I know this person. Where it's more inclusive. I want you to come along.
Yeah.
I want you to get up.
It's more intense. The networking and the building of the community is more intense. We have to understand that everything is not for everybody.
So what's for us?
We have to make what's for us. We have to create what's for us. We can't expect for somebody to give us something that we want.
It's like we got to carve out, like you said, we got to carve out
piece of the wheel. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? If you look at what's going on, right? That's very simple. We go back to a previous episode that we did. We talked about networking, right? That's probably the easiest way to create a community.
Okay, that's right. All right, let's look at this and. All right, you have organizations. So the county gives out contracts. So in the contracts, the county might say, the contract that they give out, 2% of the contracts is African American, right? Only 2%, but yet we make up 18% of the population. So how is that fair? And how can I don't even have a chisel tool to even make a will if I'm only getting 2% of the contracts?
Right.
So for me to say, well, I don't think it's wise for you to move here, and I think that you should move elsewhere, it's because of those statistics. It doesn't make sense for you to thrive and make a good business decision here because you might be blackballed or shut out in a sense. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. And it does happen.
Again, I'm I'm not oblivious to this, right? I understand it. I know and understand that these things are happening. At some point, we have to make a decision, right? Mm-hmm. At some point, we can't keep putting off what can be done today for tomorrow. Right. So if we don't say, hey, well, this is what's going on, only 2%, right? Let's say only 2% is only being awarded, but we make up 18%. Well, where's the rest of the 2%, or where's the rest of the 18 or 16% that's also in this field to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to reevaluate this structure because there's clearly...
No, the structure is there. The structure is stated that you can say, we want to give minority participation. But Miami is a melting pot, as we all know. Right. So minority participation is very...
It's not vague. Right,
it's very... Yeah.
Because we leave.
Yeah.
So we don't start.
Yeah. So that's why you have phenomena like the brain drain, where meaning that all Black people that's from Miami go away to college and they come back with their intentions on bringing resources and their talent to Miami because that's where they're from. Mm-hmm. And they realize later on, this ain't the city for me.
Right, because
I might can't excel here. I need to move away.
And I agree. I totally agree. Right. That's why it goes to, we have to understand what is it that we want out of it, right? If we want to be here in Miami, then we need to find a way to sustain and adapt to Miami.
Well, I think we certainly want to be in Miami. Yeah. I love being here in Miami.
I do.
I do too.
And as we begin to wrap up our episode, first of all, happy Black History Month. Yeah. You know, it is. And so we're celebrating Black History Month. Let's talk about in these last few minutes, how can young professionals in Miami really draw inspiration from what you were just talking about? Legacy. Mm-hmm. Communities here who are already making it, and how can we begin to carve out our own paths of success?
On knowing the history of Miami, that's number one. Like, it's a lot of people that done great things in Miami that I don't know about, or I'm just learning about. Just knowing the history, knowing the people who did certain things, and because they're still alive, and you see them every day. You just don't know, like, oh, this man did this, he did this. Just knowing your history,
and it starts with a conversation.
Yeah, it starts with a conversation. That's number one. Knowing your history, having conversations with them, and they'll give you the motivation that you need, because you'll say, wait, Mr. Johnson did all this? He built this whole block?
Right.
I didn't even know Mr. Johnson did this. So now you get that motivation because you're seeing somebody doing it.
Right.
It's very hard to see somebody like us that's doing things that we want to do. We're going to see I think everybody want to be football players.
Right.
Because that's what they see.
What you see.
Athletes.
You don't even see a lot of basketball players. And people don't want to play basketball in Miami like that because you don't see NBA players in Miami that came out of Miami. But it's football and rap because we see that. But now if you talk the conversation with Mr. Johnson or Mr. Williams and you see what they did,
and that's also a mindset too when we're younger, right?
Yeah.
Because talking to a lawyer, talking to a doctor, talking to an investor or a businessman, that's not flashy. Right? That's not something that catches our attention. When in reality, that's the sustainable way of living. Those are the people we need to be picking the brains of and sitting down and having conversations with, because those doors that they open is amazing. So I just think that it starts with us and our community and understanding that there's more to just being an athlete. There's more to just being a celebrity. Right. So, I mean, I agree.
I think that history is very important, like Marquis said, and understanding what Blacks have done for Miami and the things that we have contributed over the time. Knowing that, and then knowing where it is that we as a people want to be and want to get to is very important. I feel like if you do come here, you gotta have tough skin.
Absolutely.
You must have tough skin. You must have a hustle about yourself. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not the city you think it's gonna be handed to you.
Yeah,
definitely not.
It is not. This is not the place where. This is not it. Yeah. And so, moving here, it won't be the easiest, but I definitely think it's doable. So I still employ everybody to come, but
at your own risk.
Yeah.
Marquise, Steve, Thomas, thank you so much again for coming on back to the Black Prosperity Podcast. We have to do a part 2 of this conversation, but before we get out of here, please give the phone number to our housing programs and how people can get in touch with the services here at the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust.
Well, once again, you can send me an email, Marquise, marquis.best@miamidade.gov.
It says Steven.gilbertjr@miamidade.gov. That's my email as well.
Mine is thomas.mingo@miamidade.gov. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one. Till next time.